Hey everyone, and welcome back to Paradigm. We're already in episode 8, and today I'll be having a conversation with someone who's been a big name in the world of photography and now podcasting. He's the guy behind W Studio, an award-winning production house that's worked with some of the biggest brands and celebrities out there. And not only that, but his podcast is one of the fastest growing Arabic focus shows in the Middle East. Please put your hands together for Hikmat Wehbi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming over to Paradigm.
Hello, Mina. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for coming. Welcome to Paradigm. I suppose I'll be talking today to a man who has been recognized as the fastest growing Arabic podcast in the region. So I'm absolutely honored to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's
You're
my pleasure.
You're basically a podcast celeb.
Yes.
What am I doing here? I'm going to go home now. So tell me, Hikmat, all the way from the start. Your childhood, your early teenagehood, I have this perception that you were born with a camera in your hand, you know? So tell me a little bit about your early beginnings.
Yeah, it was like a really discovery for me, discovery of my passion to know what I want. I was really searching as a kid. I want something. I started painting. I started music. I did a lot of things, but, it never clicked. Never clicked. And back then there was no there was no internet, basically. There was no social media. So you can't see the reference of photography unless you, of course, with magazines. But it only clicked when I saw a mentor, a person he's an artist, he's a photographer. And I went to his room, so I saw the environment, what's behind that magic. And I was like, wow, that's what I love.
That's what I want to do.
Exactly.
So would you say he was kind of the motivation and where it clicked that you want to do this?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the images, the atmosphere, the images that he hanged on the wall, the magazines, I wasn't like in touch with these things. You see it in TVs and magazines and all over. But when you see like the photographer behind it, that artist who has that environment, this is what I want. And actually, if you go to my place, my home, you visited my studio, you see that I have created the same atmosphere.
Something similar. You were born and raised in Lebanon, right?
Yes.
How was it growing up in
It was tough.
Lebanon?
It was tough. I mean, tough to live in Lebanon, especially in the war. It wasn't easy for us. Changing schools, changing houses, a lot of war things and escaping and going. I mean, we had a lot of incident. Now I look at it, I'm just like, how did this pass? And
how did I pass through this?
It's crazy. I mean, we had a lot of gun fights around us and a lot of things that as a child it wasn't easy.
Right. But sometimes for us creatives, this is the perfect motivation to create beautiful art, whether it's with music, whether it's with paintings, whether it's with poetry. So I could totally see why you became who you became. You've had kind of the base roots to express yourself in a creative way.
Back then, I mean, you just thinks that's the normal, everybody's around you. Yeah, that's our life, that's the normal. But then what it leaves behind when you grow is just like, you have all these emotions and all these thoughts and why you're working that much hard, why you're trying to prove yourself all the time, because, you just want to be a better person. And I think about it, it's just like, I'm a workaholic. Why I'm doing that, why it's always I need to be in, whatever I do, I just want to be the best. But it's not easy. It's tiring all the time, and you just like take it back to the childhood, and it's just like, you want to be a better person always.
Especially when you see the thin line between life and death constantly shoved in front of your face, you kind of start questioning, what is life? What is my point? What is the meaning of this? So yeah, I totally see that coming from you. Now, tell me, defining moment in your career, you obviously had this mentor. Can we find out the name?
Yes, his name, he passed away. He's a big celebrity. His name is Stavro Jabra. He's an artist, caricaturist, and he's a famous photographer. So he has this art place and you only need that inspiration. I remember he never taught me anything because I didn't have much time or he didn't have much time to give me. I was a kid. But you just need that inspiration. And this is something I I feel I want to give back to the community. You just need an inspiration and a mentor and somebody to put you on the right place, starting point.
Right. Now tell me, from the moment you bought your first camera, what happened next?
Well, back then it was film. And
Okay.
I thought you're just buying a camera and then you'll be a photographer. And I tried a lot, and it was like all black photos and nothing. Just to hit the
Right.
exposure back then was something, just to make the right brightness or the right image, or even if it's an image, if it's in focus or not. We had all these technicalities challenge back then that we have to really
That was
learn a
difficult.
lot. Yes.
It's very difficult. Now it's easy for photographers.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's much easier. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
And,
it's true. I mean, we're gonna talk about really what's the difference between
then and now.
then and now. But back then we're stuck. I can say it's something amazing. We're stuck with technicalities, but now I learned it's just like, okay, we used to compare like the old photographers and new photographers. Oh, we are the people. We know better and this, but it's not true, to be honest. Then if the technology helps you, it sometimes takes away that technicalities and then keeps you just immediately with the creativity, because you don't need these obstacles in between.
Right. Would you say that's positive or negative?
See, before it wasn't easy to shift because we were the masters who knows the technique. All right. So when somebody takes that machine out of you and say, you don't need to know techniques, you have this technology that can do it by itself.
Like, are you questioning my intelligence at this point?
No, exactly. So it's puts a challenge for you, and that's a lot. I learned a lot not to stuck to the comfort zone of your life, and to move on and see, okay, I want to use this technology, and I don't want to challenge the new generation. I want to see how they can learn from my experience, but I want to give them a chance to create, because we used to say is the photographer behind the camera, is the eye behind the camera, because the photographer used to hide behind the camera because he knows a lot of technical things, but the real thing is actually you're the photographer in front of the camera, because you have to look at your subject, you have to create the scene and capture the right moment, and don't worry about the behind the camera, don't worry about the technicalities. The technology, I think, is something good if you accept it.
Right, and move on with it.
Yes.
What is the secret behind a good photo, in your opinion?
Is to actually really remove all these artificial polished things. And we learned by time, it's not about designing the scene, is actually by capturing the right moment where you can tell a story. So you have to look at the story, and you have to look at the meaning of your photo and not the design of it.
Right. So it's the feeling that you get.
Yes, the feeling and
from that
recording
photo.
the moment of the scene.
Right. Now, tell me one thing. At the same time, we have this crazy kind of social media boom, technology boom, much easier to become a photographer these days. We spoke about the pros and cons of it. But at the same time, I feel like we have pictures such as The Afghan Girl, right, by McCurry, where I think we saw it. It was in '84 that he took it, and only later it became something famous. So I feel like there's also this positive aspect to tech and to digitalization, where we could actually, promote our work and let the world see and let the world feel what this girl was feeling, with her blue eyes back in Afghanistan, because majority of the population wouldn't have the chance to go there to witness it. So at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of positive aspects to social media and digitalizing it. But I wanted to ask you, since you're the expert on the topic, how do you balance this? How do you balance quality with promotion, with social media, but at the same time staying true to yourself? There's a lot of things that you have to juggle, right?
Of course. I think authenticity is the key.
Right.
Because now you can't balance. You can't create a photo that is really makes it to the top line, like the Afghani girl. It was on the cover of National Geographic magazine. one of the iconic images. So it's the authenticity of things that we have to go back to, as because now we are really bombarded with a lot of colors, filters, and a lot of images. It's so much. There's a lot of traffic, and your eyes getting used to all these images. But when you stop at the story and the authenticity of things. We just saw the image of the Olympics, the surfer who raised his hand in the middle of the surfing, and he captured the moment. That's a very iconic images. It's very authentic. I mean, if you do it in CGI or AI, it doesn't mean anything. Back then in the 80s, if you do it like this, it would be wow, nice colors, nice image. But now we're searching for the right moments and the real story and authenticity.
Right, we're kind of going backwards.
Exactly.
Thankfully.
I mean, you asked me about the
Thank
camera.
God.
I want a vintage camera.
Yes.
Why do we look for vintage camera? Because it reminds us of an era, of a time. It gives you that feeling. Because always we should link the photos to the time, and that time reminds us of a story, of that country and that person. So that's what's missing.
Right. You're getting me emotional now. It's crazy. You're so right. But do you think AI is a threat in a way? Like, okay, we're talking about my generation, your generation that kind of had something else when we were younger. But kids being born these days, what are they going to see? The majority of the content that they're going to see will be AI generated things, right? Do you think it's some sort of threat, or do you think this whole vintage kind of evolution that's happening, going back in time, is going to still keep going, and we're going to show our kids one day, that this is what existed?
Yeah, I think we will have both.
Both, okay.
Yeah, we shouldn't reject anything, even creating images with AI. It needs time where it's settled down and just like really express our feelings and what we are aiming from that AI or the computer generated image. If it's something is telling our feeling, expressing our self or stories, and then it will mean something to us. At the end of the day, everything we create in life, it has to go back to the human being, to the person himself. So anything technology is, if it's not telling a story about us, it doesn't have that feeling. We're not gonna really relate to it.
Right. I hope that people are not gonna change their essence in the future. Anyways, I want to move on now, although I can talk to you all day about photography, to obviously W Studio. How did you reach a point where, you wanted to become an entrepreneur, your own founder of your own studio, and kick it off? If you could just, long story short, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was always proving myself, and it's a hard work. I want to be the best photographer, and then I want to learn all the techniques and go to the industry. I was fascinated with these big ads, campaigns, billboards, and I want to reach there. And so I said, like, okay, I need to start my own business and reach out to agencies and do campaigns, fashion campaigns, beauty campaigns, car campaigns, and you need a company. So I started slowly from with my own company, and then started to build it up until it now where we became one of the leading production house in Dubai.
Right.
Yeah.
Any favorite moments, like memory with a celebrity that you worked with?
Well, definitely. I mean, I would say back then, Claudia Schiffer.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a top model.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope this new generation remembers her, but she's one of the top models in the world. And I had the chance to
crazy.
Yeah, do photos for her. So it was like crazy moment for me, because like she was iconic.
You had your room filled out with her pictures probably the next day.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And always when I see my work on the billboards, on the cover of magazine, I was like, okay, I made it. And
yeah, I wanted to ask you that. Favorite cover, favorite billboard, did you have those?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was all mostly commercial. Always my favorite shoot is the last shoot. So it's just like the next day, okay, that's my favorite, but what's next? I always want to move on to the next shoot.
I mean, that's the entrepreneurial mindset at the end of the day. You have to have that in you.
But it's something Does anyone wants that? Does everybody wants that? Because it's tiring as well,
Of course.
and to keep up with the technology, with the changes. And we went from the film to the digital world to the social media world. There's a lot of ups and downs in that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, not everybody is an entrepreneur for a reason, I guess. You have to have that drive and that extra percent of energy in your body, I would call it.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the key to this is really accepting the future, the new generation, and helping and really believing in the new generation. Because if you're stuck in your comfort zone, that's when you will die.
So you're creating it for them rather creating it for yourself, you're saying.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I mean, you need to
Beautiful.
give back to the generation, but it's gonna give you back anyway. You're gonna win after all. When you believe in all these technologies, when you just really, whenever technology change, reshift the whole industry. From film to digital, it reshifted the whole industry. And from social media, we used to have these ad campaigns and through advertising agencies, but now ads are through social media now. So we needed to move to social media and create content that are suitable to social media, which
Right.
is fast and easy. And this, so you have to leave your big cameras and the big
Detach.
experience, detach from it, which just has a lot of emotions there because
For
that's
sure.
your experience and that's what you are good at. But if you don't accept that you want to maybe start shooting with a phone
Right.
and actually still make a good images, then you will stuck there and you will die.
Right. This is, I think, one of the keys to entrepreneurship. Yes, you can be a risk taker. Yes, you can have the energy to start something on your own. But if you don't have the guts to let go, and even if it means start from scratch tomorrow, it's not for you. It's,
100%.
it's definitely not for you. Now, I wanted to ask you any other pieces of advice that you would give to other creatives out there? It's very difficult to give advice to creatives, because they're people with their own vision. But if you could give like a few pieces of advice from your own experience, people that maybe want to open up a studio of their own, create something on their own, what would it be?
I mean, I would say that it's very challenging because it becomes open to everybody. But my advice is express what you feel, express what you really want from that art, because at the end of the day it's an art, and if you're just copying others, it won't help because you're gonna find yourself like anybody else.
Right. And I feel like Podster did ask me on an interview the other day, what would be the key, to launching your own podcast? And the first thing I said was authenticity. Like you have to be unique. We see so much information, so much content every day. It's important that you have something that's going to catch the eye and that's going to be your own. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, tell me, I'm very excited about this next question. I've heard you're launching your masterclass.
Yes.
I think I'm the number one fan that's going to be watching all of your videos and your educational clips. So tell me a little bit about the masterclass. How did this idea come to be? I feel like you've earned enough experience now to call yourself, a professional and expert in the industry. I believe it's the right time for you, right? This is the next step.
100%. I mean, I felt it when I created my podcast, how much it gave me joy and feeling when I'm really telling a story or saying something that relates to people, and people are asking me back, you know what, you made me feel good, or you changed my mind here, or you answered my question, and these replies from the people, it made me feel good. It was the first feeling where I felt like I need to give back to people because it's a joy, not because I'm just like, oh, I would love to give back, and as something that I'm trying to create artificially, or not something. Now I feel about it because I experienced it with people, and I have a lot of experience in photography, in lighting, in filming, and in podcasting now for the last 4 years. So I'm creating this big masterclass that it's gonna help people to create podcasts from the idea to the technical things, and how to talk to people, how to invite, and how to make money as well from a
Right.
podcast, because this is the hardest
Eventually,
part. Exactly.
that's the whole point of it. But what did I want to tell you? Going back to what you said about people feeling good, after the podcast, listening to it, learning some things from it. I also wanted to tell you that maybe you shouldn't underestimate even the way your guests feel when they come, because sometimes we're so caught up with our own thoughts. And if there's the right host that asks the right questions and you open up about a certain topic, I believe that most of them leave your podcast with a completely different idea of, or maybe they feel less weight on their shoulders about something. So I feel like you've helped a lot of the famous celebrities and guests that did come on your show as well.
Yeah, thank you. I discovered this honestly. I didn't know it about me. I went to a podcast by coincidence. I didn't mean it. I mean, during Corona, everything shut down, and I want to continue. I want to keep on going, keep on,
You were the psychologist.
Yeah, I want to keep on moving. I don't want to stop because that's my life. Photography, telling a story is my life. So I said, okay, let me interview people and hear their stories.
Right.
And so I was really hearing people, and I didn't know anything what I'm giving to the people, because it was something new for me. I really didn't have a reference that I want to do a podcast because it's gonna happen like that. I didn't know. It's just like, okay, I'm gonna start the podcast and go back to my photography when this lockdown finish and this. But I find the reaction of people was like, wow, they were like, Hikmat, we love it. I was like, why do you love it? I'm not an expert in TV presenting. And he said, no, we don't want that TV presenter.
That's the point. You're pure.
I mean, I was expressing really what I feel with the guests,
right.
and opening up a lot of, space for them to talk.
Right. No, it's beautiful. Honestly, I'm a huge fan
Thank you.
of your show. Now, before we move on to obviously your podcast, I wanted to ask you one last question about kind of the future of podcasts. I feel like the boom happened, right? It's been 5 years now that a podcast is something that's extremely a very popularized, let's say, term. So I wanted to ask you, where do you see it going? I mean, are we going to have different genres now? The AI guests, like what is going to be the next decade of podcasts, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, first, it's not going to stop. It's going to grow and grow and grow. But of course, it's going to be filtered and this. People love to hear stories. People love to hear other people that they can relate to with the same kind of experience, or they express something that they can't express, or they didn't have the chance to express it. So podcast is going to stay there. It's going to, talk about feelings and talk about us as a human being.
Right.
But technology is going to help in the future to make things more immersive, more you feel like you are with the guest or with that
additional
person.
Chair and you're there.
Yeah, it's just like I feel the technology is going to help with the sound, with the 3D of the sound, and maybe the avatar. I don't know. It's gonna. But the whole thing is just like we want to be close to these people and listen to their stories, and that's the base of it.
Yeah, the key is to be relatable. You want to hear something and say, "Oh, that's me," or "Oh, I know somebody that would say that as well." Yeah, I agree with you. Now, moving on. Hikmat Wehbi podcast.
Yes.
You've been very creative with the name of your podcast.
You see how uncreative it was? Because I didn't mean to have a podcast. I was like, oh, well, I didn't know it's, it's just like, let me call it Hikmat Wehbi podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But I can go back. Two things I can go back with. I mean, the name and wearing a cap. Because
people didn't recognize you.
Yeah, they didn't recognize me without
the
the cap. It's like, why you're wearing a cap? I don't know. I started with a cap. Yeah. And actually, I know why I was wearing a cap. I just discovered why. Because I was hiding, I was like afraid when I started. I was like, what I'm doing?
You didn't want to be in the spotlight.
No, I don't want to be. I mean, all my life I'm behind the camera. Now I'm in front of the camera. So let me hide, with that cap and talk to people with my eyes hidden. And it gives me like some comfort.
Right.
And then it became, that's okay. He always wear a cap and let me have it.
Headphones on, isolate yourself completely from the world. But again, that's what we're talking about. It's what makes it so unique. You're not there to be under the spotlight. You're there to actually cross stories and bring them to life and let people hear about it. Beautiful. Alrighty. Up next, I have, do you believe that there is a concrete strategy? Do you believe that there is an equation to success of a podcast? Would you say that it's, hard work with a bit of luck? Would you say that it's fully luck? Would you say that it depends on the guests that you bring on board? What would you say is the strategy to become a famous podcaster?
Well, definitely first thing, you have to be yourself.
Okay.
And not be afraid. I mean, we always, so I started, I was worried and afraid, and it's fine. So when you accept that everybody started like from a weaker point, and always we have this people, how are they gonna judge us and this. So the moment you reach to a point where you are yourself and expressing yourself, that's an amazing moment because you are different than anybody else. And then the rest will come is the consistency and be persistent and don't give up and keep on, keep on improving. By the master class, maybe they can teach you.
Yes.
You can learn about it. I mean, I've learned a lot in my life. I always ask for help as well, and this is very important. Reach out to people and ask for their advice, or ask them to come to your show. Don't be afraid. Even to really a good or high position people, don't be afraid. But you need to prepare yourself. You need to prepare your profile, your image. You do your homework, and then go reach out to people.
Right. But at the same time, even when it comes to advice, never be the smartest person in the room. It's always important to have the attitude that you could always learn more, right?
Of course.
And grow. So that's extremely important. Who was your first guest on the podcast?
My first guest was a client of mine.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I mean.
So you take pictures of them and then you put them on the seat?
A client of mine, because I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know it was a podcast. It was like an interview. So I called a friend / client, and she works in colors, and she works in a company for painting, and she traveled the world and choose inspiration, how to create colors. And her name is Rana Khadra. She's my friend as well, and she's my client. So I was like, Rana, I mean, I love what you do, and you travel, and let's come to my interview.
Spill the beans, Rana, come on.
And then after that, I had Mina Al-Sheikhli. She's an influencer, and after that, Joël Mardinian, who was really famous at that time.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, shall I call somebody famous and try if they accept? Because that was my third podcast.
Did you have the following at the time or no?
No.
You were at how many followers?
I mean, I had enough because I had like
from photography. You had
45,000, I guess. Yeah, so I had that much.
That's a good base.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good base.
Yes, it was all photography as a photographer, but just like, so what I'm trying to say is just don't be afraid to invite big people,
Right.
But why they accepted? Because they saw that I have first, I'm trying to do something, second, I've done my homework. I put the right lighting and right cameras, and they know that they are in a safe place when they go and visited my.
It's
my
a beautiful
podcast.
experience for them, that 1 hour. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. Alrighty, what were your top 3? Let's put it podcast sessions. Spill me the celebrity gossip.
Top 3. I mean, really a lot of podcasts. I would say most of my podcasts are really close to my heart. Salama was big.
Okay.
Yeah, Salama, she was very emotional.
Yeah.
She came to my podcast. I did not push her because I don't see controversy. So I don't really go to the guest and she said, you know what, I'm gonna push you until you cry or until you. I don't like that. Although it gets a lot of views.
Yes.
But
not the Piers Morgan style.
Yeah, it's not my thing,
Yeah.
because this is not my personality, so I don't want to fake it. But Salama was amazing, was emotional. The Dubai Bling guests were fun.
You're gonna have fun with them for
Yes,
sure. Yeah.
they were all fun. I love them all, and they were my favorite. Actually, I have one of my personal favorite, and it is Naila Twaini. Naila Twaini, she's the chief editor. When you say she's the editor-in-chief in Al Nahar magazine.
Okay.
And she's a deputy in the parliament. Her father was assassinated, and she comes from a political family. But why she is my favorite? Because I was always comparing myself to the traditional media. Am I stepping on their toe in a way, with this news anchors and the magazines and the TV? Because I don't want to step. I respect them so much, and they were like, Hikmat, you're doing like you're a presenter, and which background you come from. It's just like I didn't come
behind
from
the
your
camera, guys.
exactly. I didn't come from your background.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect to them. So for her to ask me to come to my podcast, and she's really on the top of that media, it was like a pleasure for me.
It was a lot, yeah. But tell me, when you do your podcast, and this is kind of a personal question of mine that I wanted to ask you, how do you ensure that, personal biases don't necessarily influence the direction, right, of your interview? Because I'm a pretty opinionated person, and I don't know if it's possible to be truly objective in your interviews. You're always going to have like a slight belief that you're going to push through. What's your style? Do you think it's possible, or do you think that, being truly objective is something that's
it's hard.
not right?
I mean, you're inviting a guest. If we are talking about podcasts where you have an interview, you're inviting that guest to hear his opinion or her opinion. So you don't want to argue a lot with them, but again, you don't want to be as well just accepting anything they say.
Right. You want to pick their brains a bit.
Yes, you have to give your opinion. So you can't be you can't always disagree or be biased and say yes and yes
All right.
with them. Yeah.
You want to make sure you end it in good terms with them as well. Now tell me, did you ever feel like you face some sort of pressure, especially when you're following Guru, to kind of reach audience expectations, meet their expectations? Did you ever feel that pressure?
Well, definitely. The pressure is really to keep on going and to continue and to grow, and that's a lot of pressure because of you brought it to yourself. So you have created this space and podcast, and now you have followers that they are waiting for the episode, and they have a demand, and so that's always a pressure. It's really not to. It's always to keep on going and to be a better. A better platform, a better guest. I mean, it's always a pressure, yes.
Did you ever have a difficult moment and you felt like, I want to give up, this is not for me, I don't want to do this anymore?
Definitely at the beginning, I was so afraid. I was so terrified.
To get out of your shell?
I stopped for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
What I'm doing. Is it me? Is like, am I really, is this my place? I love it. But you have the self-doubt was always there.
Really?
Yeah. You feel like, because when it grow, it's just like, oh, guys, wait a second. I was just playing.
You didn't expect it to reach that level.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And I don't want to fake it because I was doing it naturally. And then when it grows, it's like, okay, maybe I should really do the same way. I shouldn't be, I was overwhelming myself as well because people sees you as this traditional media and just like, are you that presenter who is... No, I'm a normal guy. I just talk. I just like, every time I come to a podcast, I'm afraid. Every time, and now I'm sitting here.
No, I hope you're not afraid.
No, but every time you start something, you doubt yourself. And this is something normal.
Yeah.
So when you accept that this is normal, if I'm saying that, anybody can feel it. That's all of us. So we shouldn't stop.
So true. Something I realized as well as being a host is you just want to have a conversation. It's not supposed to be something scripted. It's not. And now that I am with Entrepreneur Middle East, it's great because I get to meet people and hear their personal stories and talk about it and see, okay, how did this entrepreneurial mindset, come to life? So I completely see what you're saying. But what were kind of how did you come out of it? You completely disconnected yourself for 2 months and you told yourself, listen, you can do it? Or what happened?
Actually, people brought me out of it. I had a lot of encouragement.
Have this movie scene where you're in a locked door in your room and your mom is knocking on the door.
Depressed. I was depressed. I tell you why, because I don't want to fail, and that's the biggest fear. Because I don't want to stop and regret. Because if you stop, you're gonna regret 100%. And there was the fear of like, let me do it anyway. Because definitely you're gonna regret. I mean, if you do it and you fail, you're not gonna regret as much if you stop. And it was your own decision.
You don't want to be that guy who made that decision.
So I had a lot of encouragement from people, and that's I had a lot of like negative comments as well. But when you look at the positive, comments, and you say, there are some people who loves you and
Right.
likes what you do and believe on your style and the way you talk. And I said, let me go.
Right.
Let me go on. Yeah.
It's so difficult to be in the public eye and keep that mental sanity, if I can call it, and stay healthy here. So it's important that you know yourself and that you detach from the situation and analyze it properly. I feel like that's a great piece of advice for anyone that maybe will feel that way one day or have felt that way one day.
Yeah, if you're too emotional, you will just really fall into.
Yeah, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What's up next in the horizon for you? I mean, you've reached your following. You told me nearly 200, podcasts at this point. You're doing the masterclass now. Do you feel like, all of your energy is going to enter that masterclass now, or do you feel like there's something more coming your way?
Well, I mean, I haven't reached to the point where I'm happy, satisfied 100% of my podcast.
Okay.
I want to grow it much. So this is ongoing, definitely. But the masterclass is something big that I'm, first I'm helping out. I'm putting my experience, all my experience, reachable to people. And this masterclass is gonna be not only about podcast. So it's gonna have a lot of segments that talk about mental health, about entrepreneurship, and talk about real estate, talk about any profession that people would love to hear about.
Right.
So we're gonna have a lot of guests that they're gonna put their experience, and we're gonna put it together in that platform.
And they can relate to it at the end of the day.
Of course, yes.
Great. Now, tell me, you've spoken to a lot of famous people, celebrities, successful people. And I wanted to ask you this question because there's so many successful people that you meet and you see that they're not happy, in life. And what do you think is missing? Why do you think they reach a point where they have everything, but at the same time they have nothing?
Yeah, because all what they have or what we have is actually is not for us, it's for people, meaning that it's pleasing, or it's something that we have put ourselves in a position where we don't want to be in that position, meaning that people are used to see me in that look, in that position, in that car, in that, that status, that hat, and that position is not you. So it's you're not happy because the more you are yourself and the more you are vulnerable, and you'll be happier. But you have to accept that. So some people are not accepting to be vulnerable and not accepting to be being a human.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Would you say you're happy and satisfied in your life?
I am, definitely, but there is a part I would definitely admit. When you're into business and passion, or you're gonna lose a lot in your family side, and you're gonna lose a lot of the simple things, but on a personal side.
Right.
Yes. You invested all your time in business.
Especially as a man, you guys tend to be more on the workaholic side of things.
So I would say
sorry to all the feminists that are listening to the podcast.
The balance is very important.
Very important, yeah. I see that. Now, I always ask this question to all of my guests. If I were to give you a time machine, go all the way back in time, what would you tell a younger version of yourself? The 10-year-old Hikmat, what would you tell him if you were his father or grandfather?
I mean, I would tell him, look what you have done. You can always express yourself. I used to have moments when I was a kid, I never talked to anybody. I was just listening. Maybe it helped me because I'm a good listener in the podcast.
I'm telling you, you're a great psychologist, probably.
Yes, but I didn't have, a guide, a reference when I was a kid. And I was like always in my thoughts, and so always with the self-doubt. Am I doing the right thing? I reach to a point where I need to double the work and just to prove myself. But now I would tell myself, it's just, you can relax now.
Yeah, you've reached quite high peaks.
Yeah, you can just relax and you don't have to prove.
Right,
yeah.
right. Well, Hikmat, I did post a couple of stories of your face on our social media, and I got quite a lot of audience questions. So I picked, let's say, the top three that I think we didn't cover in the podcast, but we can cover it now for the ending. So there was a question from Emily that came through. Hi, Hikmat. I'm a huge fan of your podcast ever since I moved to Dubai. Do you have any plans to expand or evolve W Studio in new directions? Are there specific areas of media production that you're interested in exploring further? Maybe Emily wants a job. You never know. Tell us any specific areas of expansion.
Yes, definitely. We are moving into a 360 agency,
Okay.
into events, into PR, into marketing, because we've been specialized mostly in production, and now we feel like the clients are asking for the 360. So there's a big chance for everybody to
Right.
join.
They want to come to you and tell you from A to Z you're doing the whole project, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, now with the rise of social media, the production is like one part of the thing. It used to be the biggest part of creating content, but now it's more of influencers, it's more of marketing,
Yeah.
events. It's all together that creates an ad,
And every day is different.
of course.
That's the best part of it. Up next we have Mohammed. Funny thing about Mohammed, he wrote the entire question in Arabic, so I had to translate it into English. But I kept the beginning. Salam alaikum, Hikmat. Always happy to see your show reels pop up in my feed. Always wondered, how do you deal with criticism, whether it's about the content of your podcast or your interviewing style? How do you deal with criticism?
Honestly,
Do you have criticism?
yeah, but I don't worry. I post and ghost. I
Alright.
really don't, unless that comment is really bad for my guest, and I ask
Okay.
my team to delete it. I like comments, whether it's positive or negative. I reach to a point it doesn't really affect me emotionally, but I have to monitor my guest's feeling. So yes,
Right.
I'm
Was
good
there
with it.
but was there ever a time where it actually affected you in the beginning or you never
Yes,
cared?
100%. At the
You did?
beginning, you just like read each and every
Ah,
message.
really?
Yes.
Okay. Now you're just like, whatever. Alrighty, Mohammed, hopefully that answers your question. Up next, we have Sarah. Very simple. Her question was, how do you choose your guests?
It's a good question.
Yeah. Maybe she wants to be part of your podcast. You never know.
Of course. I mean, there's many criteria, but the main thing is they need to have a story. I need to have at least see something on their feed, on their whatever YouTube page or Instagram or their website. I need to see that they are actually expressing themselves and talking and have a story to tell. Because this is what people need to hear. The next thing is what the guest also what the people ask me to bring to my podcast. So there's a lot of demand, and so they send me a lot, like, let's interview that person, and I research about them. So I
Okay.
listen to my my audience.
Your audience.
Yes, what
That's
they suggest.
very important. That's a
Mhm.
good piece of advice. Alrighty, well, Hikmat, I feel like our podcast is coming to an end. Any sort of final messages that you want to spat across there as your final words for the podcast?
I would really encourage everyone to create his or her own space of talking.
Yeah.
Podcast is a great way. It's something that people immediately related to because it's genuine. So if we are not afraid and we are expressing all our thoughts, it's very useful for your business as well. So podcast can tell people about your personality or your product or your talent or your company, and you get to know a lot of people. So it helps in any way. I would really encourage people to start their own podcast.
Right. And I would encourage them to also view your master classes to see how it's done. Because at the same time, if you don't have the right host who can ask the right questions, the stories are not going to be told, right?
Thank you so much. Yes, definitely, I would encourage them.
Hikmat, absolute pleasure speaking to you, meeting you. You're a true gem, and I'm extremely inspired by your entire story. And we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much for coming over to
Mina,
Paradigm.
my pleasure is mine. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Wow, what a wonderful conversation. It's been awesome hearing Hikmat's thoughts on how photography world has changed and all the things that come with launching Arab's fastest growing podcast. At the end of the day, One thing I learned from Hikmat today is how to truly navigate all the pros, all the cons in the creative world while essentially staying true to yourself and your craft. If you haven't yet, check out Hikmat's latest episodes and stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussions and inspiring stories in our next episode of Paradigm. Like, share, and comment your thoughts. Until then, you know the drill. Keep innovating, keep evolving, and keep reshaping the future. With you was Mina Vucic.